Well, the U.S. Fed seems determined to keep increasing rates to stem U.S. inflation, further pushing up bond prices, home mortgage prices, car loan prices. Boy, seems not to end. Also, the U.S. SEC seems determined to do whatever they can to tank all crypto altcoin projects and Bitcoin as a way to preserve U.S. dollar strength. What does that really mean, though, for crypto prices? They only have so much power as these things become a global force. Well, price analysis helps us to see the full story because the charts usually tell us what insiders know is happening and even many times what is coming. Well, today, Paul from Dfinity joins us to look at the macro environment as well as many altcoin picks from audience members from last week's video. Welcome to the Crypto Rain channel. I'm your host, Jay Rain. If you like money in crypto and you're looking for a seasoned investor's take on the crypto market, join the Rainmaker family. Do note, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm a crypto investor myself. Paul is an investor in many, many markets. We want to thank our Patreon members. We do have a private Discord there. Patreon members only get access to. Now make it rain on that like button and strap in for the show. Let's welcome Paul from Dfinity.
Great to be here. Interesting markets as always. We are having to be extremely patient, waiting for this big rally to come. But these signals are just getting very, very close. But we're not quite there yet, which is a bit frustrating. As I've said in some of the interviews we've done before, that there will come a time where we'll be loading the boat and getting really excited about everything. But for the moment, caution is the watchword until the markets can throw a tantrum, the equity markets that is, throw a tantrum and make the Fed rethink their policy on interest rates. We're also seeing house prices in the US go down and commodity prices have been going down. And so these factors are coming into play to the extent where they're going to have to react soon. So October's very renowned. Well, September, October is renowned for a very bearish sort of period as we go into the winter. People get all dark and gloomy. And we've certainly seen that in the equity markets as well over the past few weeks. But the good news is I think the market is extremely short or getting to that point. And one of the interesting things about now in 2007, 2008, when we saw the financial crisis, it's really important, I think, to recognize that the authorities seem much more ready to act rather than kind of wait for the damage to be done. I mean, there is some damage being done here that they will have to unwind, but I think they will react quickly if the equity markets fall lower. So it's almost like this last convincing move needs to happen, and then we'll get the final kind of washout, if you like, and then we'll be ready for a big rally into hopefully the end of this year, and then it should last quite a long time potentially. So we shall see. We've got to wait for the signs, like you're saying. We can't just jump in, but that's the overall strategy, I'm thinking. And it's also linked to the US dollar, which is becoming more and more volatile as it's reaching perhaps the peak of its phase. So we can have a look at some of those signs if you wish.
Yeah, I would love to dig deeper into that. I was thinking about just kind of this market, and I did a video just the other day about how the market, like these crypto winters, they kind of lull investors to sleep. Yeah. Because it seems kind of boring, prices go down, and so people just wait on the sidelines with a bunch of their money. Like I had a good friend that I talked to 2.5 years ago, and he put some money in. He put about 2 or 3 or 4,000 in. That 2 or 3 or 4,000 turned into like 50,000. And then he's like, oh my gosh, okay, I get it now. And then he put 30,000 in. Well, when prices were cheap, why is it that somebody doesn't throw a whole bunch in? Well, because nothing's happening. Sometimes it gets cheaper and it kind of lulls you to sleep. And so people don't take the big bets till after massive runs have happened, right? Yeah. So his initial investment was very protected because he bought so low. The stuff he put in later was a lot more risky because already prices had risen a whole bunch. And so these kind of down markets oftentimes lull people to sleep. The whole reason I talk about the system I do for crypto investment is because I think about what is a system that anybody can do that they can make money over the longer cycles. And that's what I think about. That's the system I use, because I tried doing what you do. It's incredibly difficult because we start to get emotional about it, and we start to make emotional decisions. And the more I've learned about technical analysis, price analysis, it helps me. And I love these recordings that we do together because I learned so much from you. But yeah, this kind of down market lulls people to sleep, and we'll talk about what it's looking like. And it looks like it's setting up something good. I guess I'll share an analogy as we get into that of how I was thinking about it as we were talking. Let me go ahead and share your screen, and yeah, let's look at what you're looking at.
Sure. I think what you're saying there about putting big positions when the markets are quite quiet. Overall, I think it's really interesting that your approach is one where you're looking at long-term cycles, because long-term cycles are extremely important and will, in the same way that you were involved in the housing market, in the land market, they will infer what will happen in other markets. So it's something that you can take from other markets and bring into the crypto space. So the question is belief. Like, I'm not even sure I could do it, even though I'm expecting a rally. I'm not sure I could put 30 grand into something that's really small. The reason why I prefer to buy small is because I know when it starts to accelerate, I'll get really excited, and you'll see me on the show at some point getting really excited over something that's sort of taking off.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's how quickly you respond to that, in what position size. So if you think of it in terms of momentum, if something's moving very fast and you can jump aboard, and you know you can jump on any time, like that to me is more exciting than trying to get on a train that's just sitting there. But I still understand why buying when it's really quiet is, can work out well. But also the question is, what do you buy, and how is your psychology going to be affected by it going down? You may have to wait a long time. You may have to wait for the position to, halve or maybe even more before it starts to turn around. So I think psychologically that's even harder than using technicals, which is designed really just to look for changes in trend, or you're looking for changes in market dynamics. So at the moment, it's been dollar strength, and yields rising. That's been impacting the markets. So all those scenarios are working, but at some point that'll start to break down. And what I'm looking in the charts is what will break those scenarios down. So we've talked about the dollar potentially being near the end of the trend, and it's hit 115, which was the upper end, and it's had a nice correction. And the individual currencies against the US dollar have also had a fairly decent bounce. Sterling was hit, we talked about it last week, it was hit really hard, and then it rallied very aggressively as well. So we are seeing like V lows, which is important. This sort of move here, this is sterling against the US dollar. You see it absolutely collapsed. I won't go into the fundamentals as to potentially why that might have happened, but the important thing is it's bounced really hard. So the dollar index hitting 115 is showing signs of a top. This is volatility, and the market is getting extremely bullish on the US dollar, possibly at the wrong time. This was the time to be bullish, but now they're really bullish up at this time because they're going to do it near the end of the trend. So I can't just say, look, it's going up, sell it, because that's not the way it works. We look for more technical signals to say that we're sure about it. And something I was looking at just before we came onto the show, if we look at how long it took for the dollar to base, it started in early Jan. It really didn't get going until May. So that was a good 5 months of sideways price action before the trend even began. So these periods are not uncommon. It's in any market, in any asset. So we are experiencing a big correction in crypto, and we are experiencing a big consolidation as well. And those are frustrating, but that's part of markets, and it's the sort of thing we've got to get used to. So these sideways and reversals set up the big trends that then follow. So the dollar index is starting to show some signs of top. This is the medium-term moving average here, which comes in around 108. It really needs to break that. It hasn't done that in any appreciable way from this whole trend. And we got the longer-term 200-day moving average, which is also at fairly low levels compared to the market. So, and they're all turning up. So that sounds very bullish, I know, but what I'm saying is this volatility is still signs that the market is getting near the end. And part of that is sentiment, which I think you used in your property investments as well. When everybody starts to get too excited about something, you know, you're getting near the end of it. And the headlines and the news and the fact that people on the street are starting to talk about dollar strength, you know, most of the time they don't talk about finances. So if they start talking about Bitcoin strength, and then you'll know we're near the end of a bull trend, and vice versa on the downside. So just a quick look at yields. The trend is still upwards, but we've seen a little correction. But again, I just think there may be a bit more to come. But putting all the pieces together, how high are yields going to go when the equity markets have been collapsing and scaring people about the potential downsides? So, you know, yields could go up a bit more, but the dollar strength this will start to cause a problem. Not as big as 2008, but it's going to start to cause a problem. And I think other central banks obviously have got to catch up if they've got inflation as well. We've had weaker currency here than you've had there, so we're importing inflation into the UK with a weak currency. So raising interest rates is going to counter that. And we will catch up with the US. The other countries will catch up with the US. And so that will see the dollar weaken. If the dollar weakens, then ultimately, being the biggest economy in the world, that will allow for more risk on trades. So a weakening dollar is good for risk on. So housing data might not look good, but that's not surprising. And economically, I think we'll hit an upper limit on these rates, and the Fed will then be convinced that they need to start boosting the economy a little bit because they'll overshoot. So in terms of the timing of that, I'm still, you know, I was expecting it a bit before now, and so it's sort of getting mature, but we are getting closer. That's all I can say. I've been cautiously sort of stepping through what's been going on in the crypto space because the other signs haven't quite completed yet. But it doesn't rule out more downside in equities, doesn't rule out more upside in the dollar, but we're closer to the end than we were, you know, many weeks ago. So we just got to be a bit more patient, really.
Yeah, I was thinking as we were talking, right? Because I like analogies because it helps me to picture what's going on. And it's almost like, imagine surfing, right? Way back in the early days of like Hawaii, when they had just invented it and they didn't know like exactly the schedule of the moon and everything, right? So you have your tide coming in, your tide going out. And it's hard to surf when the tide is going out and the waves aren't as big. The best time to surf is when the tide is coming in. And a lot of times in crypto, we're waiting for that tide to come in for the bigger gains. That doesn't mean there aren't some waves that you can catch while the tide's going out. And we've seen some of that, right? A few NFT projects, a few other things have pumped and then mostly retraced. But when the tide is coming in is when the massive gains happen. So my strategy is that I deploy while the tide is going out. Even though sometimes you end up deploying early, you end up having some of it reverse on you. I just dollar cost average then across various different projects especially because I invest in high risk altcoins, any one of them could fail. So I would never put all my eggs in one basket because that would just be too risky for me. The way I diversify is across many baskets, knowing that if I invest well, some of those will 100x, some might only 50x, and some might 30x. and some will fail. But across that, my gains are really substantial over a 4-year period. And if I do that over 2 8-year period or 2 4-year periods for a total of like 8 years, can lead to life-changing wealth. And that was my strategy that really interested me, as I was new to crypto and figuring things out. So I've been through 1 4-year cycle, and it pretty much hit life-changing wealth in 1 cycle. But, you know, I'm looking for the 2nd cycle. And a lot of our audience members, this is their first cycle. They're preparing for massive runs as the tide comes in and catching a lot of things. One of the great things about technical analysis and price analysis is that as the tide's coming in, you see certain moves about to break, and that you can put some gains in there, sometimes harvest gains from something else that already broke and went way, way high, almost like riding a wave. And then you can deploy it into something else that's setting up just perfectly.
Yeah, you could look for relative strength. You look for breakouts. So Bitcoin relative to Ether, but also some of the other projects, you see what's leading, what's lagging. And then in a true bull market, pretty much everything will go up. So this move down, I think, has sort of cleared out some of the projects that were perhaps a little too ambitious, too speculative, not thought out. We're just trying to jump in on a wave of optimism in the sector without actually having as good projects as other people. And then this is what bear markets do. They clear out the projects that can't compete. And then we see the consolidation. And then the next move will be the what's left there will be much stronger. So it's part of a normal market cycle. And there are some sectors that have lagged, but it doesn't mean they're going to lag forever. And when everything turns around, we'll be able to see a very big bull market. So it's a bit like the property market when it fragments into different areas. Some do well and some don't. But then in a true bull market, everything goes up. It's just a question of degree. Yep. And just to use one of the analogies that I kind of like about the markets, or how I think about it, you mentioned sort of the moon cycles and waves and things. It's also a bit like the way taxi drivers operate. So they kind of work on the basis that they want to make X amount in a day. Now, I'm not saying that that's a good or bad strategy. I'm just saying that's how they operate. So when they're really busy, they will like work until say 11 o'clock or midday and then go off and play golf. But when everything's very slow, they'll kind of grind until 5 o'clock or 7 o'clock or whatever to make that single amount that they have in their mind every day to make. But it makes much more sense to work it the other way. When everything is booming, that's when you give the market and everything else your biggest attention. When things are kind of, a bit slower, there's no point trying to force trades that aren't there, because unless things have changed and people aren't going to use taxis again, things move in cycles. So the market will move into a new bull cycle. We just have to wait for it. And so I kind of like that idea that, or that analogy, as to perhaps the way to do it is to wait until everything is hot. But then looking at that transition, the danger is if you just sit out for too long, you'll miss the signs, and it can all kick off very quickly. And if you're positioned with something, at least you'll be able to take advantage of those first moves, those ground roots moves.
Yeah, what I find a lot of people do in the crypto space is they get tired by these crypto winters, so they stop paying attention until they start hearing really bullish news from everyone. So they miss the good first half or 2/3 of the increases. Wow. And all of a sudden they jump in at a much riskier point, because they kind of get lulled to sleep with crypto, like they get worn down. And because they're not in the financial, like they have a day job that's somewhat completely non-related to crypto. And so we tend to would just forget about it and almost kind of just be kind of bearish, even when we start hearing little rumors of good news. But then when our friends are calling us saying, I made 50x on this, I made 30x on this, all of a sudden it gets us that FOMO. And so people then jump in. That's actually exactly what happened to BitBoy, who got into crypto in 2013. Then the prices reversed, and then he washed out during that bear market. Only then 2017, not being in there early when the prices were already really high, he jumps back in and, you know, buys the high again, right? And so that's why I like the idea of, well, and what I did was I just stuck around during that crypto winter and paid attention, learned, research project, did as much research as I could. And then I dollar cost average in, because I knew if I like shut off and went away from it, I would miss that cycle, because I wouldn't be checking day to day. I didn't have friends who were professional price traders to give me an alert. Hey, this setup is perfect. Jump in on this. I would just zone it out. And then all of a sudden I hear somebody's getting 50x gains and stuff. And then it'd be like, oh my gosh, and jump in. And this is why so many people don't make money in crypto, is because they have day jobs and other things. They don't have friends. They can say, hey, this setup looks perfect, jump in, unless they're already paying attention. And, you know, so I find the simplest strategy for people that have like regular lives, like myself, that's how I was. I had a job in real estate. And so I would make investments during the crypto winter, and some of those investments over 100x, and some went 20x, and some went 50x, and some blew up and didn't do anything. But the average of that was significant. And so that's the system that I like. Now, those that turn into these videos on Wednesday, like as the market turns around, we will see some really significant setups. In fact, we've seen some in our history that Paul identified and is like, oh my gosh, look at this setup. Wow, I love this one. And so we'll get a lot more of that will be happening weekly pretty much, right? So
Yeah, absolutely. I look forward to that. Again, when things look obviously a bit clearer and the trends are starting to accelerate, that's usually, as you say, when what I see is when the trends start to move really fast, that's when people start to wait for a pullback. They say, okay, this is too high now. Let me just wait for it to come back down, and then I'll buy. And the problem with that is the train is leaving the station very, very quickly, and it's hard psychologically to jump on that unless you have something that gives you an advantage, i.e. chart patterns that say, okay, this breakout is going to result in a very sharp move.
mm-hmm.
And those very short consolidations are opportunities. So we will see them in the future. So people have got to keep watching the channel for when they come. But you know, I'll point them out when they're there. But you'll see what I mean. But for the moment, it's unfortunately we've still got to be a bit cautious, and that will kind of permeate most of my, or infer most of my views for everything until things are clearer on the bigger picture, on the macro. I have to be cautious because that's the way the market looks.
Perfect. Well, why don't we jump into your thoughts on Bitcoin and ETH, and then we'll jump into some altcoin picks from last week's videos. If you have some suggestions you want us to look at for next week's video, put in up to 2, particularly write what you like about them. That helps us in our analysis.
Yeah, that's great. If you can put, as you say, what you like about the project. It's interesting to know what field it's in from my point of view. I want to know which sectors might be sort of under a cloud and which ones might be outperforming. That sort of stuff is really useful. But in terms of what ETH's doing, it's been chewing this at $1,280 area, and that was the breakout point. I'm starting with ETH because there is a clearer technical pattern here that, in reverse to the way this was more of a base, this looks like what we call a continuation pattern, which means that this might infer that this week, perhaps in a few days, this could go down quite hard. So this is a symmetrical triangle or a pennant, whichever you prefer. It's probably more a pennant than a symmetrical triangle. But all it's saying is that the market is compressed, it's in a range, and it needs to break out. Now, obviously, it's either going to break up or down, but because the trend here has been down, the next move could be to the downside. So I'd be braced for another move down. Now, it's still way above its low. So we've seen the low for the year, and it's above that. The question is it going to trade towards that and try and take it out? Well, at this stage, I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm taking this one step at a time because we're in this big, broader consolidation. I'd like to think that we've based, and one last move down would be it, but there are too many sort of question marks over the bigger picture, so I have to wait. But I would just say that that's the only standout for me at the moment, that this is forming a pennant formation, which is usually bearish. Now, it could be for a short-term move. It's not necessarily for a long-term move. We'll just have to see how it develops. With Bitcoin, it's just not really very clear. We're just bumping near the lows, and I don't like that. I don't like the way we get close to this cliff edge, as I keep calling it. The problem with this is if it breaks this low, then we're going to head down to the next major sort of support point. And on the plus side, the longer it can stay in this range, the better. But I need to see it put some distance between here and the low. So the spread between ETH and Bitcoin might reverse a little bit because it's been on favor of ETH versus Bitcoin. So that could reverse. But until we get some proper space between the low here and the current price action, I'm going to be very cautious. And we want to see some type of very strong impulsive move. So impulsive, I mean sharp move to the upside, which means that the market is potentially starting a new trend. So it's kind of a starting gun where boom, off we go. These sort of compressed lows or compressed price action near the low is not a great sign. It might mean that we need one more panic to clear out the final positions to then set the market up for the next move. Now, where the next Fibonacci support comes in is around 14,000. So it's possible that it could get down there. I'd hope it can hold on to this, as I say, and the dollar starts to weaken and we'll see broad brush rally and it won't test these levels. But I think it's worth just bearing in mind that these levels are possible and how we might react to them, because if it starts to come down here, you know, it could be a great buying opportunity from a long-term perspective. So we shall see. But at the moment, it's a steady as she goes, and maybe be braced for a bit of a correction this week because ETH looks like it's going to go down, and so does Bitcoin.
Nice. Let's jump over to some suggestions. I realized that I had missed two to send over to you.
Okay.
This is by Zach Hessler, and he took the time to write out a little bit about them. So I wanted to put his first. And he first asked us to look at EWT. And he says it's an ecosystem for a whole new energy grid. Sounds interesting. I'm not familiar with it.
Okay. Let's pop that in. So EWT.
And it looks like there's two EWTs, so it's not clear whether he's looking at Energy Web. That's the one I'm looking at.
Okay, so that's against Bitcoin. So let's just put that in.
Yeah, we build operating systems for energy grids, so it sounds like that's exactly it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, right. So yeah, right. So EWT. So let's try a different market because that's not updating. Yeah, here we are. So that's the latest. Okay, yeah, this is interesting. So I was saying about what we want from Bitcoin and ETH is a very sharp, impulsive move. Well, look, that's what we've got here. Very sharp move. That kicks the trend off, and so it also means that we can't turn our back on the market for too long, because who knows when this might happen. You've got to turn up every day and keep watching it, even if it's to say not yet. But I like the fact that this has got this really nice impulsive trend here that's kicked this move off. It has been in a broader downward trend until that point. But this was a little inverse head and shoulders, very small pattern. and it's moved much beyond what we would expect for that small pattern. But that's good. That's a good thing. It's also taken out resistance here, which is also another good thing. So, I think this is looking good. I think this is a buy, which is unusual, because I was expecting to say kind of wait and hold off on everything. But I think it might be worth just putting a small position in to see how this develops. That's your main upward trend line, and as long as it holds, it could come back into that. That would be a buying point. There's some very big support around this level here, around $3. But this has created quite a hard concrete floor, is the way I would see it, at 2.7. I don't want to see it go below that, because that would be breaking. That would be bad, because it spent a long time there creating resistance, which is now support. So for me, I think as long as it perhaps wait for a bit of a pullback into this line, I'd be waiting for a pullback into this line. And then I would think my downside would be to 2.7. If it breaks 2.7, I'd be bailing out. Now, what we need to see break out is this resistance point here at 5.12. So is it going to do that while everything else is going kind of sideways to down? It'd be really interesting to see if it can. I mean, this was also quite a very strong impulsive trend. So this is corrective. I can see on the big picture around 5.5 would be a big barrier. So you might see a bit of profit taking coming in around here if we get up there. But if we get through there, if it can sort of get through there in a few months or so, then it could look quite exciting from the longer term. So definitely an interesting one, and looking more bullish than I was expecting.
Yeah, good suggestion. This from Zach. Let me share some things I was looking at. Market cap is 169 million. Fairly sizable market cap for where we are in this crypto winter. Its fully diluted valuation is over double that, because only 43% of the tokens are in circulation. So when it came out is early April, when we had DeFi summer do pretty well during that time in 2020. And so this seemed to pump during DeFi summer as well. Then, as everything else pumped in that market, it went up. It's actually held fairly solid during this bigger downturn, which means as tokens come into circulation, they've gotten bought up. So there's a lot of people who must believe in this project. I was looking at their website, went over to their team, and then, they list a whole bunch of team members. So I clicked on their leadership right now. Unfortunately, I don't know who either of these four people are. So CTO is Manny Sefet, CFO is Rafaela Piriano. So probably Portuguese, maybe from Spain originally, right? Walter Koch, Jesse Morris. So diverse team. Unfortunately, I don't know anything about them. Look at all. So clearly a big team. I try to evaluate whether I think this will do good, like over the next 10 or 15 years. And I definitely don't know enough about the team to make that assessment, even not for my own feelings. I also asked, can this do well during the next push? And that has a little bit to do with the strength of the team, but a lot to do with the narrative that when the market flips around, almost all boats will do well during that rising tide. They'll all raise. Some will raise more than others. And a lot of that has to do with how strong the narrative is during that time. And so maybe I would have to see some videos on this, maybe some stuff that they put out, and get a deeper analysis. For me, it's just a wait, just kind of like, I think you're kind of like looking for a good entry signal. Let me take this to log scale that you were at. And that if it comes back down a little bit from that new trend, actually, let me show your chart, and hits that lower trend line and then holds that might potentially be an entry signal that I would be interested in. So, interesting. Yeah, I've seen a few of these projects come and go over the past 5 years that have come in, and blockchain is perfect for helping the idea of decentralized energy, which I love, decentralized energy, meaning like if you put up a bunch of solar panels on your house, that if you're using less electricity than you're producing, that you could actually then get monetarily rewarded by providing that electricity to the grid. I love that idea, especially since solar panels are producing a lot of electricity when all the air conditioning is needing to be used. So there's some big draws on electricity. That takes some of the load off of whatever electricity company is providing that during those peak hours, right? So I love that idea, and blockchain is probably going to end up being the solution to that. There are a lot of regulatory hurdles to making that be the case, though. And one of the reasons I was looking at the diversity of the team is to get something like this global means in every jurisdiction, every locality, you're going to have different governments in the way of that. So that's one of the big hurdles for this really to be a long-term success. There's so much regulation and politicians and even voters that you would have to persuade, because there's also entrenched interests that don't want it to go this way. Cool. Let's jump over to the other one. CSPR is the other one Zach provided. It's an enterprise layer 1 blockchain that has upgradable smart contracts.
Okay, CSPR.
CSPR.
Let's try this one. Okay, that's CSPR.
And it should be Casper Network.
Okay, so Casper Network is this one. And that's
and for some reason it stopped updating.
I'll pop over to TradingView and see if we got it here. So I think this is the one. At least we got some up-to-date data. Let's see how far back we got. Wow, okay. I'm guessing that's some form of spike, but actually, you never know. It might not be. Well, this is more in the territory of what Bitcoin is doing. It's sort of hit its low and it's kind of bumping along the low. The positive side is that the heat of the downtrend has been taken out. The negative side is it's not very far from its low, which is always a dangerous sign when the market's heading to or very close to its low. It doesn't take much to push it through, and then all positions start to sell, and you get this kind of sharp move. And whichever way you're looking at it, it might be a really good buying opportunity, but it's certainly a bit of a bumpy ride. So for the moment here, I think I'd have to be neutral. You see the chart is much more different compared to the other one, which is in a more developed upward trend. So it's a big contrast between the two. Now, where this would look interesting. So what I like to think is, well, okay, I might not like it now, but where might I like it? If it takes this resistance out, which is around 4 cents, then we've created a double bottom pattern. There's a lot of resistance around there. So if we can get through that, that'd be great. And as a first stage of the trend, that would be interesting. So through 4 cents would be my trip wire for getting interested in it. Put some sort of alert at that level or just before. This is a little triangular here, which again, I was saying with ETH, can potentially lead to a move down. So I'm not that convinced that it's going to move straight up, but I'm willing to be proven wrong. And if I am, then that's great. So I start out with a view, let the market tell me I'm wrong, and then amend my view to what the market's doing, rather than just trying to fight it. So yeah, it's an interesting one, but I think it will become an interesting one. But for the moment, obviously it's still stuck in this range. There's some good technical levels with which we could get interested in it, that would say that the new trend is starting, but it's not quite there yet. So I think it'd be highly speculative to put something in it, and I'd have to hear an argument. I'd have to sort of park the technicals and hear the fundamentals and hear something that would encourage me to do that, that I'm not seeing from a technical point of view, if that makes sense.
Yeah, great suggestion as well on this. Let me walk through some of the fundamentals I'm looking at. So market cap's at 309 million, fairly sizable market cap. Looks like most of the tokens are in circulation, which I really, really like to see. Now, they would have launched probably back here in, what is that, May of 2021. That's also when the market started coming down. So it's only showing part of this. There probably was a little bit of price action that happened prior to this, where we probably saw whatever their initial price was. It ran up to here and then started coming down. So it topped off at about $1.33 and it's currently under 3 cents. I pulled up TradingView because I like to see this W pattern, but it's often turns into a double bottom. But I think about this, we usually see this side. When you know it starts going up, what happens is it usually goes up to some previous support level. It often comes back down, touches the middle of this W, and then off to the races. Seems like it might be setting up for that. We definitely are seeing a general bigger rounded bottom, which is what I like to see, is this type of behavior, right? So look how sharp these decreases are, and they're going down like this. This is a flattening and a rounding, which generally means the tide is likely turning, though it's not a perfect predictor because that doesn't mean it can't break down further. But I like this one. It actually is pretty attractive price for me, even at this. Now, I do wish that the overall market cap was lower. 309 million is not exactly a low market cap. But, you know, I was buying Cardano when Cardano's market cap was this around this price, and I made tremendous gains on that as it went 100x from there. Casper, the future-proof blockchain, it says. The Casper Network is a decentralized layer 1 proof-of-stake blockchain, so we like that it's proof of stake. Built on the Casper CBC specification, it's designed to accelerate enterprise and developer adoption of blockchain technology today and evolve to meet the future. So it really has to do with who the team is behind this. It looks pretty good, and I kind of like the charts. Okay, Tim Draper. I like it. Cool. Yeah, like that looks pretty attractive to me. Let's see. The other way I look is see what markets is trading on. So it's on almost everything. It's on Kucoin, which I use a lot. If you don't have a Kucoin account, great thing. So they don't allow U.S. investors, but they do, because if you don't KYC, you can still use it. And so I do have a referral link below if you want to use my referral link to make sure you get to the site. Gives me a little bit of a thing. I think it actually gives you a little bit of kickback too, if I'm remembering right. But anyway, Kucoin is a good one for a lot of the good projects you can get on. So not bad. For me, it's a buy, which is surprising. But that's when I like to buy. Paul and I are very different on that. He wants a confirmed uptick. I often am not checking the charts every day on the 18,000 different things out there. So I like to buy.
Neither am I, to be fair.
Yeah, right. And if you check the breakout pattern just a week too late, the reason you're checking is because everyone's talking about, oh, it just made 7x gains. Yeah. And you look back at the chart and you're like, oh, that was a perfect setup. Oh my gosh. Missed it. Yeah. So that's why I often buy when it just looks pretty darn good. So cool. Great suggestions. Let's jump into some of the others. Let's look at Bumper. This one we've looked at a lot. It's one of my favorites for this bear market. If their technology does what they're hoping it will do, it could do incredibly well from here. So that's versus WETH.
Let's get it on. I went to CoinGecko because I had a bit of trouble finding it, so I had a quick go on TradingView just then, but I sort of had a look at it earlier just to see where I could find it. I couldn't find it on the other charting package. So this is what we've got, and this is the maximum amount of data. So we were in this downward trend, which reversed into a rally, but of course it's fighting against the trend in terms of the macro picture, and it's come back down again. So what we can say here is it's holding a low which is higher than the previous low, and everything else has obviously been in this crypto winter phase. So it's not breaking out, it's not standing out in any way as far as the technicals go, but I'm encouraged by the fact that it's making a higher low and it's consolidating here. But it does seem to have gone very quiet. So these ranges are quite tight, and there's not much more upward activity that I can sort of get my teeth into in terms of the trend. So I'd have to say wait on this. It may get a bit cheaper, closer to this support down here, which would be very solid support. Where things would become more exciting is if it can take this gap out. You see this gap to the downside. That's not a particularly good sign. You want to see that filled. By filled, it means the market trades back into it. So something happened, market panicked. It opened here, and then it sort of opened here with a big sort of downward move because the news was bearish. It's at least managed to hold and consolidate in a range, which is good. But it really needs to recover that, because whatever the psychology for that move is obviously still there. And where it would look really good, where we get a double bottom pattern that would actually indicate that this trend is reversing from a larger perspective, will be if it can break through this resistance up here. So that's around just over 7 or 6 cents, 6.25 cents. So 3/4 cents, I should say. So if it can get through there, we'll have like a double bottom confirmed, because this is a low, but it's not a reversal pattern until this starts to trend up. So we're gonna have to wait. There's some interesting things there to follow, but I need a little bit more before I can actually turn bullish.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Paul. Let me share my screen, just looking through. So I really like this project, because if what they're trying to do, if they're successful with this, which is a different way to hedge your downside risk, it's the kind of stuff that institutions would go crazy for if they're able to do it. So it's kind of like a mix between like a stop loss and insurance, and something that smart contracts make it possible to do. So prior to blockchain, this wasn't really possible. But say you want to hedge your Ethereum, and say the price has gone up to $5,000, and you're a major institution. So you have, say, $1 billion in ETH. And so you don't want to take a 50% swing down, right? You would lose the faith of your investors and other people that have put money into your fund. And so you want some kind of insurance type product, but what they offer isn't really insurance so much as you can hedge your downside risk. So you can lock it in at, say, 95% of whatever the value's at. So at $5,000, you could lock it in that you won't lose more than 4,500. So kind of like a stop loss, but a stop loss, if it hits 4,500 and then runs up to $8,000, you lose all that upside. So what it is at 4,500, it actually converts your position to USD. The minute it hits back to 4,500 going up, it switches back to that. So you're able to take that ride up. If it continues down and it goes down to, say, 2,500, because it did convert it to USDC, you can then go ahead and cash out your 4,500, and your position, or bumpered position as they call it, was very well placed, because then you can decide what to do. You've only lost 5%. And so you can, in fact, it would be 47.50, I think, if you only lost 5%. You could then buy a bunch of ETH at a heavy discount now, because you have all that money in cash. And so, or in USDC stablecoin. So it's really interesting as I look at their market cap, what it is right now. Now realize a little over 10% of their supplies in circulation. But even if this were to go about 8 times, like 1/8 of their max supply is in circulating supply. So 10 times that by about 8, and you get about $10 million market cap. So that would be the fully diluted market cap, or actually it says right here, just under 10 million at 8.89. What I like about this idea is if this idea is successful, and we're going to say if, because we don't know if this is going to work out. We don't know if they're going to get the traction that major institutions start using them or some other competitor comes in. But if they end up leading this, and so far as I know, they're the only ones working on this technology. If they end up leading this and it is successful, it's a $10 billion to $120 billion market cap idea, which is 1,000 plus X from here. Now, that doesn't happen overnight. That happens over sometimes 2 cycles to go to those kind of numbers. But I like this one as a long shot, high potential risk bet, meaning it's got every risk it could fail too, which is why I've had the CEO on a couple times so that you all can get a feel for him and see what you think of him and the team that he's working with as he describes who are some of the members of the team and what their background is. They definitely have a very sophisticated, high profile background to be able to do this, the kind of background I'm looking for. But with anything, sometimes great ideas fail, even if there's a need for them. Sometimes there's a little bit of luck involved. So I like this one. I like the current price. I stocked up on this and I would like to buy more, but like Paul, I'm just going to wait on this because I'd like to see if it touches near a little bit closer to that lower trend line. I'm tempted to buy some more, but I have a bunch and I do want more. But I'm just going to be a little bit patient and see if it comes down a little bit more to stock up even more. I totally loaded up on this before, unfortunately missing that 2.5 price point. Boy, that's a juicy price point that I'd be happy to get some more at, or some at 2.5 cents. My dollar cost average price is higher than that. That would bring down my dollar cost average by a lot. If it hits near that, and probably if it hit 2.7, 2.8, I would be very happy and just pick up some more right there. Cool. Let's jump over to Solend.
Yeah. So, so Solend, I think we've looked at this before.
Yes.
Possibly a few times. Now, over here, if you know, isn't it strange? I don't know whether there's something about this that's changed in terms of what I'm identifying here is the smoothness of the data. So usually there's a bit more volatility. So it's almost like this has just been drawn out or the data's been cleaned. So I'm not sure why that might be. Usually when you get low volume, you get far more kind of data spikes. But in any case, just identify what's been going on here. We've had a downward trend, so a very strong downward trend. It's been difficult. And around the sort of stock market low time, the market, or just after that, the market based. Now, what was forming here was a potential inverse head and shoulders. That would be, let's see if I can get this thing. Can I draw with that? No, it's not that one. It's something else. Okay, so that would be the left shoulder. This would be the head, and this would have been the right shoulder. But it didn't complete. It's just gone into this sideways range with not very much, price action in either direction. It's sort of drifted aimlessly. Now, we're seeing a pickup in interest, in volume, and in price volatility. And unfortunately, that's moving to the downside, which is not a good sign, really. So this needs to stop. It needs to find some support. The good news is it's close to pretty good support where we are now. So this low here held in, and we also see that the low held in here. It was also the buy trigger for this move up. So around here is a good stopping point for it. But when you're steaming towards a level, it's kind of can you really stand in front of the market and say stop? We'd have to be cautious and wait for it to actually turn around rather than just jumping in, especially when these bars are opening up. See, I don't like to see the range getting bigger. That's usually a bit of a bad sign. What we want to see is the market hit a low and then trade all the way back up, which is more like a spike. So for me, I think it's definitely a wait. I've got to wait to see whether this support around here holds. And longer term, I'm still expecting, or I would hope for it to break out through this 80 cents level for me to get bullish. So it can consolidate down here for a bit longer. That's fine. As long as it can hold into this range until everything macro starts to turn up, I'll be happy. But I don't want to see it heading towards these lows and taking them out. That would be a bad sign. And you'd be looking for signs that things are turning down, and we're getting some here, which is a bit, it's a little bit concerning. But as I say, we've got support here that could hold it. So let's see how it trades in the next few weeks.
Yeah, so this is a wait for you.
Yeah, definitely a wait.
Okay. Perfect. For me, this is interesting. I want to see it get a little bit cheaper, but I've dollar cost averaged into this one. My dollar cost average price is a lot higher than the current price. I would be very happy to get some more, but looking at that trend, I think it's going to get a little bit cheaper. So I put a note in my calendar to check it like in a day from now and see if it's a little bit cheaper. And if it is, I'll probably dollar cost average in some more. Because what often happens with this is that some tokens are vesting. Now, I wish I had been able to get the full token chart when I first dollar cost averaged into this. There's a few things that I liked about Solend. First of all, it was a lending platform on Solana. There wasn't anybody at the time that was really owning that. And so here came Solend into the picture, backed by Coinbase Ventures, Alameda Research, and the Solana Foundation. So for me, I was like, oh, yes. I'd like to invest in the early days in things that Coinbase is also invested in, especially if Alameda Research is also invested in it, because I've seen high levels of success, even though it's often taken patience. And so I still very much like this project. And so I'm very excited to dollar cost average some more into it, because even though my position, and I bought some clear up here, I was looking at the token vesting, and the pre-sale investors were locked for a long time, like a year. In fact, it might be the pre-sale investors who are finally getting their tokens out. That might be what's causing that chart that you were showing. Is that still on Solend?
No, I bumped out of it. Yeah, sorry.
No worries. That might be what's causing it to then drop again like this, right? Is that some pre-sale investors are getting their tokens, and they're probably even still up on whatever they paid. And so that's bringing the price. So I'm going to do some more research, see if I can figure out what that pre-sale price is, because what often happens is it will drop down to there. And it looks like we're getting right to that year mark. November. Yep. I bet you some of that is the pre-sale investors token starting to unlock, and they are selling. So, yeah, price might get cheaper. I'm going to keep an eye on this. So I'm going to turn that just to a wait. And I'm just going to keep an eye on this one closely and see what's happening with these unlocks. If they start unlocking monthly, it might savage the price even more. I like this one for the long term. Solana is still not in the narrative. It's been out of the narrative for a long time. They've had some big bugs. Their system has crashed. Though massive funds are going into developing Solana and a lot of things on top of Solana. So I think in the long term, it'll probably be successful as a blockchain. It has some backing from some very big players like Alameda Research and Sam Bankman-Fried. And so, yeah, very interesting project to me. Great suggestion. Let's take a look over at Cosmos.
Yeah. So this is one that's been bucking the trend. I think we looked at it before, and it has seen this upward trend that came out of a kind of hybrid inverse head and shoulders. But either way, the trend is moving up, and we got to go with that trend. So there's your trend line. You can draw a parallel line across it as well. So it's going up in this trend channel. So let me just remove that. There we go. So that's the trend channel. Now, what we'd like to see is some acceleration, which we got here, accelerated into the top end of the trend channel, comes back into support. The support area around 12 is pretty good. It's even better around 10. So if it breaks this lower support line, then I think at least you've got a cushion of support around sort of 10, this 10 area. But given the fact that this is trending up, I think we need to go with it. It's a fairly decent trend. We'll get a correction. I'd expect a correction because it is swimming against the tide, and people will take profits on it. But as long as it holds over this sort of 10 area, I think it'll look good. So for me, it's a buy. I mean, I could wait for 10, but it's in this upward trend channel. Where the big resistance comes in is around 20. That's key resistance. That was what set off the downside move in these really sharp trends. This is the sort of upward trend that I would like to see. I want to see it accelerate up in exactly the same way. So these have been overlapping waves in the trend. So it means it's been going up, but there is still some sort of uncertainty there, which is why I think a correction back to 10 could be on the cards, and then it might look cheap enough for people to jump back in again. I don't want to see it come any lower than 9, though. If it gets below that area, then it's, for me, a bit concerning, and I'd rather wait for it to go below 9, even if that's just a fake out move and it goes back up again. I'd sort of wait while it's below 9 and then try to rebuy it as it goes back up again. But yeah, given the overall space, that's really interesting that it's still trying to work its way higher. As I say, there is some resistance coming up. If it can, obviously this resistance is the main one, or the closest one, around 16. It's tried twice to break through there and failed. So that would be a very important signal if it could get through that. But the overall trend is looking good.
Yeah, I feel like Cosmos is finally getting its due. There's a lot of applications and even some blockchains building on Cosmos. And so it's good to see it do really well. I don't presently hold any. For me, I'm just going to wait to see what resolves out of this pattern. Its overall market cap is higher than I'd like to be at. So it doesn't really fit very well in my overall strategy. I would consider this a blue chip. It's at 3.7 billion market cap. Can it go higher than this? Oh, yeah. It could, especially as the tide comes in and it starts running. It could go 10x that or higher, is my guess. A lot of it doesn't tell us their total supply versus circulating supply. It looks like it's infinite, so that more tokens continue to come into the ecosystem. And so I don't know exactly what those numbers look like as far as how much more is being added. Okay, so large amount of trading volume. It's on just about every market out there, so it's easy to find. Good suggestion for those that are looking to add to their blue chips. I like Cosmos as extreme long-term viability. I don't see any problems that would make it so this one doesn't stay around for the next 30 years. I think a lot of projects are using it. I think their technology is good. So it's in my opinion, a really good long-term blue chip. So for those looking to add to that space, this is one to consider. I can't really tell you whether it to buy or not. When I say buy, with my criteria, it would be a buy if I were looking to add to my blue chips. Whether you do or not, just you have to decide for yourself and put your own research into it. Let's jump over to Fidira. We haven't looked at that in a little while. This is an altcoin.
I had to try to find that on the usual charting platforms, and it wasn't there. So let's have a look if you think this could be. Actually, no, that doesn't look like it's right.
Oh, interesting. It looked like it would have been the case.
Wrapped Ether, no, that's not it. Tether, here we go. It might be this one. Is that it?
It's currently showing on price for me. That's FRA. FRA. I have it on CoinGecko. This one might not show up in some, that looks like it's it.
Yeah, It's yeah, it's just not being updated. That's the only problem.
Boy, that spike, I think that's a glitch because,
Yeah,
oh
yeah, I'm
man,
pretty sure. Oh, actually, look. Oh, this could be it.
yeah,
Yeah, that's it.
that's
Yeah,
it.
yeah. So apologies for that. Okay, so we have got it. So we'll look at that spike. I mean, that is a big spike. It's obviously something that people got excited about for just one day, and then it tailed off again. But at least it put a break on this downward trend, which has been, pretty brutal, or at least a pause. So the trend is still down. So you look left to right, we're still going down, and there's still more work to do to reverse it. At least some buying is coming in, even if it hasn't been sustained in the short term. Um, I can't say buy yet because we're just not there. I mean, it's not like a smooth downward trend. So if we were looking at this at this point, it would just be, look, the trend's down, we're going to wait. Now, at the end of a trend, you get volatility. So this could be the start of volatility that indicates that the trend is going to move upwards. But just one move isn't enough. We need more than that. And to be more confident, I have to at least see it break beyond the range or the top of this range, which is around 0.007, so not even a cent. But then this level here is what I prefer. So kind of nearly 1 cent would be the buy point. Now you might say, well, why don't you just buy it here? Yeah, you could do. I suppose you can buy at any point. You might have said, well, this was cheap as well. You just don't know whether there's going to be another big downward trend, and that's the point of looking for what are reversal patterns. So the reversal pattern here, I can't. What could there be? A spike is a good one. I mean, that's the first thing. But with a spike, the market normally holds most of the gains, and here it's not holding the gains; it's lost them again into around 50%. So it wouldn't take much more for it to start heading back down to where it was before, which is why I'm being a bit more cautious on this rather than saying, okay, that's a great spike, let's just buy into it. So we want to see this reverse out, do something like this, sort of head sort of back upwards like that, and then take out this resistance before it would look sort of safe enough to get or put your toe in the water. And then where we get a bit more aggressive would be, as I say, if it takes out this resistance here, because that was the start of a little base here that actually, kicked off and then it negated, but is still some pretty decent resistance. So if it gets through that resistance, it would have broken the downward trend line and done enough for us to call this whole area here a base. So you'd be looking at something like this where it's gone down and then back up again. And that would be a double bottom. A double bottom doesn't have to have the two lows at the same point. They can be at different points. The important point is the kind of middle point, if you like, where the resistance comes in. That's where the signal comes in. So we're going to have to wait for this one, unfortunately. But hopefully it will turn around with the rest of the market.
Yeah, this one is interesting. I've had the team on. They've launched almost a year ago now. And so they're way down here. Now, they have an interesting model. They have a lot of connections with stores across the world and a distribution network. And their idea was to put some gift cards in their distribution that they had. And that allows people to then redeem those gift cards and get a free NFT with it. Sometimes being like a really rare NFT and stuff, so that they get the value of the crypto that they bought plus a free NFT. And it puts it in convenience stores where people can just pick up the card. They can then scan it in, instantly takes them to the Fidira portal, right? Where they can then, if they want to trade that for something else, they might be able to trade. So it will be in Fidira token. So if they buy a $50 US gift card, when they cash it in, it'll give them that equivalent worth of Fidira plus the NFT. And so really cool idea. Good way to get a free NFT. Maybe by staking the Federa, you'd earn more NFTs with some of their potential network partners. So we see that their price has absolutely gotten savaged. So I was hoping the market would turn around sooner than this. It's been over a year since they launched, and so their price has gotten crushed. Look at this. Their seed round price was 5 cents, and it is down 91.3% from even the seed round price. So if it survives, and I'll use the word if, I haven't spoken to the team in probably 6 months, communicated with them a little bit 6 months ago. If it survives, it's got amazing potential upside. So it's a high risk, high potential reward play, that the type of play that isn't a bad one to throw a little bit of money into. Now, I have a lot of tokens. Unfortunately for me, I did not get them anywhere near this cheap. And so I'm upside down on my position, which frequently happens in this type of market. And I look for opportunities to dollar cost average. And at this price, it's extremely enticing to me. As for the easiest way to get it, I get it on QuickSwap over on Polygon. So I'm going to check and see if I have any stable coins on Polygon or something. And I might just add to my position a little bit. It's a high risk, high potential return play if it works out, but it could go to zero, that maybe they didn't have enough money to survive this kind of downturn. The good news is that my guess is the pre-sale tokens are all distributed over this first year. So probably you won't have pre-sale investors tokens being given to them that they're then dumping. So it has a chance to better. Let me just check this one on CoinMarketCap. Fully diluted market cap at 433,000. Now, remember in 2017 that there were some ones that came from market caps like this that went to a market cap of like 20 million, and those returns were tremendous. So, yeah, I can't say whether this one's going to make it. I just don't know. But if it does, some good potential upside. So for me, it's kind of like between a wait and a buy. If I have some, I'm actually going to buy some if I have some stable coins on the Polygon network. All right. Let's jump over to the next one, which would be, well, Cellframe is a suggestion. We looked at that not too long ago. Spores, has it been a while since we looked at Spores? It's been a few weeks, but probably only a few weeks. Paul, do you mind if we jump over to Rfox?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Now I was trying to find that, and is that Rfox Labs, or is it just this Rfox Finance, or is it this one?
Oh yeah, it's Rfox, which is probably.
I'll try this one. See what it says.
Yeah, I think that's it.
That's it. Is it okay? Now I'd love to know what they do, but this is a clearer technical pattern than the previous one. We've got this downward trend, and as you can see, this consolidation got a higher low, well, a lower high here, which is not a great sign. So we've got to draw a line across that to see the trend rate. Now, if we draw a horizontal line as well across here, then this is looking potentially like a descending triangle, and a descending triangle is a bearish pattern. Here we have a symmetrical triangle. You see this area here where the market goes straight down, consolidates in a triangle. Actually, I'll draw it with this this thing here. See, so you've got this triangular constriction, and then it breaks down. So this is almost a bigger pattern, a bigger version of that. It did try to rally here, so it was developing an upward trend, but that's blocked here and blocked here. So with it bumping so close to the low, I've got to be very cautious, because it wouldn't take much to break this low and extend this trend downwards. So I think it could actually get, so I'll just take it off the brush. It could actually get a bit cheaper here, and I'd be very cautious that might happen. So for me, it's definitely a wait. And if it takes this low out, if it's a good project, there may be a buying opportunity coming in, but I've got to see the community buying it rather than me just stepping in and thinking, well, it looks inverted commas cheap. Now, where this descending triangle would fail, because of course it's not guaranteed, would be if it can take out, first of all, this line. So that's the first signal. But then even if it does that, let's say it goes sideways for a bit, then takes this line out, this resistance, the next resistance point is here. And that's then followed closely by the next resistance point, which is the bigger one, which is here. So you can see, look at this resistance, which is also this support. So this is the major level. That is the level I would really be very interested in seeing it take out. If it can do that, then it's put this descending triangle to bed. It's formed a base as well. It would be taking out decent resistance, and then it would also be breaking this downward trend. So just over 1.5 cents for me is the level that I'd be interested in buying it. Now I'm not saying it can't turn around from here, because anything can happen. But while it's so close to this low, I'm going to have to wait and leave some money on the table, as it were. If I could have bought it cheaper, for me, I don't mind that, as long as the market's moving in the right direction. So that's an interesting one. I'd really love to know what they do.
They are a gaming metaverse play. So let me share my screen. Rfox. So they hit this last in 2021 when we had the big pump, right? So they hit up to 34 cents, came back down in July when it all got boring. It bottomed out around 3 cents, then went 10x all the way to over 30 cents again, and it's since come down. So we see since that time, a lot of their tokens have come into circulation. So 1.3 billion tokens are in circulation with a fully diluted market cap of 18 million. So 12 million total market cap. Okay, that's pretty interesting. So looking at their site, very busy, cool site. Tells you, okay, it's on Gate.io, Uniswap, PancakeSwap. You can buy it. Some of their partners, Hacken, CoinGecko, Kinetic Consulting. So this might just be that they're listed on CoinGecko. Some of their ideas: an online media venture building solutions to allow users to earn rewards for creating content, shaping the future of play to earn in VR gaming with popular key opinion gamers and more upcoming games. So their idea is to have like some gamers playing it. This is a narrative that could do well as money comes back in the market. You see that playing out, right? So I don't know enough about the team to know if I feel like they're special enough they're going to make it long term. But look at this. As money came in the market, they rode that wave up. Came back down when the market came down, they rode that wave up again. And they could probably ride that wave up again. So let's see. Yeah, that's, it's showing some potential bottoming signals, and I like that. So market cap's low enough, and it is tradable on PancakeSwap. Cool. Also Kucoin. Nice. Yeah, for me, this might be I don't know. I'm split between buy and just see, I like that nice bottoming here. Let me go to log scale so we can see a little bit better. Nice flattening, kind of a rounded bottom that's not yet heading up, but interesting. So potentially I would say that this is a buy. Great suggestion. Let's take a look over at Glmr, GLMR.
GLMR. So that's, we got Moonbeam US dollar,
Yeah,
or
that's it.
that's it. Is
the
it
one we want?
Okay, let's see if that right. All right. So that is, yeah, that's up to date price action. So this is a fairly quick, simple one. This is still in a downward trend, unfortunately. I mean, you can look overall. This is what we've got here. I mean, I'm trying to use a mouse to draw a trend line, and that's obviously not a good idea. So I'm going to delete that. But what we've got here is a major downward trend. There's not much sign of it stopping. So depending on where I don't know if that's correct as a top. in terms of the peak price action, but we would draw the line like this. But even though it's breaking through here, I think the line is probably going to be a bit more like this, a little bit higher, and even so, I would still be a bit cautious. I mean, it's okay that the market's gone sideways, taking some heat out of the downward trend, but it's not showing much signs of life at this point. And normally, when a market's been in a downward trend like this, you get a very sharp kickoff move that that sets the new trend, the new impulse trend, the reversal of this move up. So we haven't had that yet. I mean, maybe it will come. And if it does, that's fantastic. But for me, it's definitely a wait whilst this trend is going down. Other than it touching this trend line, there's no other reversal sign. There's nothing else that's saying strength. So if it can accelerate through this line, then great. That will be the first sign. I would still be cautious until it takes out 63 cents because that's the prior resistance. There's been a lot of buildup of trades in this area here. Again, it needs to get all the way through that, and that won't do that until it's through 85 to 86 cents. So even at sort of 63 cents, there's still a bit of upside resistance for it to show, for it to get through before this trend is properly turned around. So there's quite a lot of work for it to do, but it doesn't mean it can't do it. It just means that it's not showing any signs at this point of doing it. So for me, it's a wait for now.
Yeah, I like Glmr. I like the project. I don't like where the price is still not signaling enough of a rounded bottom to me. It looks like it might still be going down. Market cap 185 million. It looks like maybe 30-ish% of the supply is in circulation. Polkadot's ecosystem will have its day again. And Moonbeam is a key part of the Polkadot ecosystem. But I think probably token investing is still happening with this. And just Polkadot is out of sight, out of mind. People aren't thinking about it. So it might experience more price pressure pushing it down. This is one of my long-term ones to watch. But I'm looking for a good entry, and I'm not seeing that. In fact, if I had some, I would possibly sell, just hoping that it continues further. And it may not. It may not. But there's other setups I like better than this one. Cool. Let's jump over to some ones from last week that we had to push. Let's look at Formation Finance.
Yep. Okay. Formation Finance. No, that's not it. It's this one. That's it. Okay. So this is trying to form a base here. So we see how we've got this very strong downward trend, and you have to be cautious when you've seen that. The market needs to make a proper base, show that it's going back up. Now, there's a couple of pluses and minuses. On the plus side, it stopped going down, started going sideways, so that's good. What's on the downside is that the rate of incline of this trend is not great. So if we use this line here, if we say that this was the point where the trend changed, the rate at which it's going down and the rate at which it's going up are very different. And I'd like to see them more mirrored. So the way it's gone down and the way it goes up, it should at least be as fast on the way up. So that means that there's still quite a lot of indecision going on. Now, we'd need to see this level here break. Excuse me. That's where all the resistance is. So we've got this kind of rising low with this resistance point here. So where is that? That's around a third of a cent. So, a third of a cent breakout, it's worth a punt. I would say so wait until it does it. But if it can close over a third of a cent, that would be a trigger point. It's not massive, and we are still trying to reverse this major trend. So it'd just be a tiny nibble. But at least it's trying to go up. Now, where things go wrong, we've got this support line, which is held in really nicely. It could break this support around here, but because it's so close, it could do it tomorrow. So we've got to give it a little bit of space. So I would say things are going to get a bit shaky if it takes out this 2.0025 level. So this point here, that's where I would be concerned that it's starting to make a new low. So it's a fairly balanced setup here. It doesn't have to do too much to break out and look quite a lot better, but even if it does break out, I do want to see some acceleration in price action so it can at least mirror the way it went down to get some of that indecisiveness in the market here, to put that in the rear view mirror and start a really decent upward trend. So for me, it's a wait, but there's some good levels to watch there.
Yeah. So I like this one. It's at this point, right? So what often happens is a lot of projects that raise money and they launch a year to a year and a half ago, and this one launched about a year and a half ago, is you worry about them a little bit because like they usually raise some money. How wise did they spend that money, et cetera, right? Are they still alive and ticking? Are they running on fumes and about to go out of business? Because they probably still have some team tokens and some other foundation tokens that they can put into the market. See, if you see this, only 10% of their tokens seem to be in circulation. So they have some more that they could sell off, because look how the market cap is less than 1/10 of the fully diluted market cap. So there's 79 million in supply and the max supply is 1 billion. So they probably have some more that they could sell into the market, but are they going to run out of funds? Are they just going to sit on those? I like how cheap the price is. If it just goes back to its previous highs that happened shortly after launch, that is over 100x return or close to 100x return from here. And so will it hit that? I don't know. But I like this type of risk to reward with this really low market cap, realizing this is why I diversify, because, we talked about a couple like this, Fidira, Formation Finance. I like him. I've spoken with the team. I like the teams, but doesn't mean they're going to make it. And so I spread it out because some will, some won't. And and I like Formation Finance. In fact, what I was going to buy Rfox with, I'm actually going to use for this. So, and it's just a small additional position on this, but that market cap's so low that if this pops, it'll do tremendous. And Rfox's market cap was considerably higher than this at like 13 or 14 million. And so it's just easier to pop when it's so low like this, if it survives. And so this would definitely be an even riskier play than Rfox would. So, all right. Let's take a look over at Cetus, as we had an interview with the team, the CEO, and he pronounced it Cetus. He's from Europe.
I see.
So I've been calling it Sidus for forever. I'll probably keep referring it to as Sidus, but he refers to it as Cetus.
I would have said Sidus, so I would have been with you, but okay, Cetus. Cetus is in the middle of a consolidation. So downward trend, at least that's stopped. Now we're going sideways. So we've got this potential base that's forming. And the great news about this is it's fairly clear where the start of a new trend will be triggered from, and that will be through this area here. So we've got just over, nearly 1/3%. So if we can get through that resistance, got 1, 2, and it was the stopping point on the way down. So you can see why people who bought it around here, the market went up and they just bailed, and they tried again and it bailed again. So for me, it's a wait until this resistance point gets taken out. But clearly the downward trend has eased. So that's a really good first sign. And it's in this consolidation. Now, the only question mark around this is, will it try for a new low before it turns around again? It's certainly here in a bit of a downward trend. That's not good. And it's not far from the sort of all-time low on this chart, which worries me. So we're not far away from this. It could just take a few days and it could touch it. So there is good support where it is right now. So from today, I don't want to see it go any lower than this. Otherwise, the risk of it taking out this all-time low will increase considerably. So overall, it's trying to consolidate. I can see what the market's trying to do, but there's a bit of uncertainty around whether this is going to be a base or whether it's going to go and have another go at the downside and get even cheaper. Good news is if it is a good project, then these very cheap levels will be potentially a screaming opportunity. But I'm going to have to wait until I get a proper signal, and that will be through this resistance point, which is showing up so very clearly. By the way, even if it does break through this, it doesn't guarantee it's going to go up. That's just my sort of first stage test. It's got to show some form of strength. Well, it's showing a little bit of strength in terms of going sideways, but it's got to show an upward trend for me to want to buy it. And that means it's got to take out a level that it couldn't break through before and form a base. So if it breaks this level here, then good. That's the first sign. That's where I'd like to buy it. But for now, because it's so close to the previous low and it's still in this consolidation, there's too many question marks over whether it's based or not. So I'll have to wait.
Yeah, I like this project a lot. So at the NFT NYC event is when I met up with the team. We were in some Telegram chats together and connected there and decided to meet up. I was impressed by how focused Dan was and just his understanding of the problems or the hurdles in the way for bringing about a video game like this, right? So Cetus is a video game, Cetus Heroes, and his overall vision I was impressed with. So I invited him to be on the channel and talk to him some more. After speaking with him, I had already purchased one of their NFTs. I went and bought some tokens. There is actually a way you can invest the tokens in the game itself into some of the modules in the game. And then if you invest into the modules of the game, those modules end up making money. Then they actually distribute some of that money to you, or some probably end up making tokens. They distribute those tokens to you, which will then have value. So really interesting concepts of making this universe or this metaverse that you can have businesses within the game, which is an idea that my uncle talked about. He was a top level programmer and video game designer. And he talked about this idea of in the future, there will be a game that will dominate. And this game will be one that they allow other companies to move in and create things within their ecosystem. And so you'll have all these businesses within the bigger game metaverse, and nobody's allowing that now. He was talking about this 5 or 6 years ago. Nobody's allowing that now, but in the future, the game that does that right will become the biggest game in the world. And whether Sidus is going to do that right, I hope so. They're focused. I just saw some stuff on Twitter about their team continues to grow. Their market cap's only 6 million. About 1/10 of their tokens are in supply. So their max supply is 30, probably a little bit under 30 billion, because I think they have a burn mechanism, if I'm remembering right. And that's why it has a lower total supply here. So about 1/10 of their tokens are in circulation. So there's a lot of potential upside for this. This is definitely one of the gaming projects to watch, in my opinion, in the future. I have some. I invested a bunch in the modules in the game. I kept some on the sidelines just in case. And I might consider picking up some more. I like the CEO and I liked his vision. I hope it comes together. Cool. Well,
Great.
Thank you, Paul, for all your time. This was a longer episode, but a lot to go through, and we even had to skip over a couple. So,
sure. My pleasure. Really enjoyed it. Looking forward to all the new picks and for the market to turn around. So that's all to come in the future. But thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you. So if you have any picks that you want us to talk about, put it down below. And if you write a good write-up on what you like about it, I'll make sure to prioritize those, but only 2 per person. Put them in the comment section. If there's a chat enabled, not in the chat, in the comments, because we won't see the chat for the following week. Do you remember the crypto market? It's slow right now, and that's okay. Just know that good decisions made during these pullbacks lead to life-changing ones when the market turns around. This wrap is for all of you to reinforce the principles I share that make all the difference in higher returns.
Came into the space chasing all of the gains, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, buy before you could. Was told to buy when it was pouring like a rainmaker should. Buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss. Cause I'll always make the time in mind. I stick the one out cause I'm patient like that. And I'll wait for the right time. I'll sell when it's high, I'll buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't lead with my heart. The principles are simple, they're leaving a mark. Buy when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling, got parabolic and dump it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Time is never better, the time like the present. This next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, to study and to know that nothing comes easy but with knowledge the game show. Sticking out this wrong could soon become a bear market. Learning and growing and when it's slow would be the target. They say it's come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. Sticking around, the time is better. I'm strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. 2 years time the ball will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. Let go of the hate, let the haters be crapping. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I'll follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, the time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough. And that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.